Welcome to the Vybe podcast. Our mission is to provide the platform where unique voices can be heard.
We aim to build a community of support through music and other art forms.
If you enjoy the content we make, be sure to hit the follow button.
By supporting, you're helping us bring better content to you.
Much love.
Well, you were born in Hudson, right?
Well, the thing is, though, I grew up in the countryside, so I wasn't exposed to a lot of different people from a young age, right? Mostly, I was exposed a lot to Indigenous people, yes, because there was a lot of Indigenous folks at my school, and there was Indigenous folks in my home. So, like brothers, sisters. But I never really looked at it from a cultural perspective because my family didn't educate me on Indigenous struggles. I just looked at them as family. So I had a very simple, and there's pros and cons to that.
Yeah.
You know, I've taken strides in more recent years to educate myself more on ethnic and cultural struggles, but in that time I just viewed them as family.
But
So-
you grew up with Indigenous, but you had friends that were non-Indigenous that went to school, right? In certain areas.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you witnessed some of them the way they talk about the Indian or the.
Yeah, there was definitely some animosity. There was instances of that. But like me being a kid, not having an in-depth understanding on this, very simple-minded approach, I just thought, it was kids fighting. I didn't view it as racism because I was too young to recognize that, or too naive, I should say, to recognize that, there's an ingrained root of racism here. I just thought it was just kids fighting.
Yeah,
And that's my honest truth. Right?
I go to a store in town with my parents or my grandparents. My grandparents looked Indigenous, right? And they sounded, and they're speaking the language. So I go into town with them and let's say a couple of my cousins. Now my cousins grew up on the reserve, so they dressed in their jeans and they had their plaid shirts and they had a lot of the kids don't get up and comb their hair and wash their face, right? They just get up and their hair's messy and what do I care, you know? And maybe it's not a school day. We're just so we're gonna look messy.
Just kids being kids, man.
Kids being kids.
Yeah.
So we go into town. Of course, my mom. As soon as I wake up, gotta wash my face, gotta comb my hair, part it over to the side. I gotta wear a nice clean shirt, ironed, and nice dress pants, not jeans, but little black pants.
Right.
So I stood out from the other kids, but I was still Indigenous with the long hair. And then I'd be with my grandparents who looked Indigenous and dressed like the Indigenous people, right? Like my grandmother always wore dresses. She'd never wear pants, ever, but always wore dresses. She was taught women wear dresses, men wear pants. And my grandfather, of course, wore the suspenders and, the dress pants.
Yeah.
Yet he's working out in the mud and fishing and whatever, but he still wore dress pants, dress shoes, and suspenders and a white dress shirt, right?
Yeah.
Trying to be proper, and he was a very, very respectable person, and he was respected in his community, and he worked for the government. So, but being with them in town, man, did I ever notice how people talked to us and treated us. The white adults would, say, this little Indian kid wants to know how much this is, instead of saying this little guy wants to know, right?
Right.
They'd say the little Indian kid wants to know how much this is.
Yeah, we have to specify the race.
Yeah. Or else the way they talk to my grandparents, if somebody said, "Excuse me, could you tell me how much these oranges are?" Yeah, there should be a price there, but we have them on sale, whatever, right? But when my grandmother would say, "How much are the oranges?" They'd say, "The price is there," and then they turn away and. They were so disrespectful to my grandparents, unless they knew them, right? Then they were polite. But a lot of the times, man, that it was looked at like we were going to steal something, or like we're going to break something, or or like we were dirty and don't touch anything because you haven't washed your hands, and that's how I noticed. And then of course getting beaten up by white kids because I was Native, but then being beaten up by Native kids because I sounded and looked white, right? Like, it's just crazy. So then when I see, when I hear you talking, because you grew up with Native people, you understood some of what they were like, but you couldn't understand the feel of what they had to deal with.
I was very naive and socially inept, so I didn't. I wasn't able to recognize or understand. I wasn't able to recognize or understand like why they were being treated different. because I wasn't seeing the race, so to speak. I know some people don't like hearing that, but it's true. Like I wasn't seeing the race because Indigenous people grew up in my family as brothers and sisters. We fostered Indigenous kids for the better part of a decade. So it was, for me, it wasn't like a race thing. It was like, why are people being mean?
I
That's
think
what it was.
Because that's the thing. Because for you, like no one ever put the word racism. Because like this thing, racism is a learned behavior.
I didn't even
and it's a taught behavior. You know what I mean? So if no one ever taught you like racism was a thing, like no kid, like have you actually seen kids like little kids in daycare? They don't care, man. Like they all play with each other. You know what I mean?
We're all born colorblind.
Yes.
Right? We're all born
You know what I
colorblind,
mean? Right?
cultural
so that's
blind.
that's why I say like ignorance and innocence are very, very similar thing, right? As a kid, you're allowed to be innocent.
Yeah.
As an adult, you can't be ignorant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Learning that I was a really late bloomer to learning that color mattered. If that makes any sense, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what racism meant until I was almost in high school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like, but it was just like a normal thing to have Indigenous people around.
See, you said you're culturally ignorant. I was culturally ignorant at the same time too, because every time we'd move to a different community, because my dad was a government agent, we'd move to a different community. I had to learn everything about that community and how to interact with the people in that community. Some of these communities were reserves, some of them were small white towns. Then you get the big city, like Winnipeg was a big city to us, and man, I was so ignorant and stupid on how to interact with people. And then some people knew how to take advantage of me. When inner city kids or even adults, they knew how to manipulate. I was a great fighter as a kid. Boxer, martial arts. My dad made sure we were trained for all this stuff. So I was a great fighter. The bikers took advantage of that when, I started hanging around with all of the long-haired guys because I had long hair. So I melded more into the rockers, right? I could call them the rockers back then, not the mods or the preppies or the mods and the punks. So I fit in with the rockers with the leather jacket and the studs. And of course, majority of those kids were the children of bikers. So being the only Indigenous rapper biker, that's exactly where it came from, is because I hung around with all the bikers. I grew up with bikers, but I was a great fighter too, right? Boxer, fighter, street fighter. I learned how to do all this stuff. The bikers, they knew how to manipulate that, and then they'd hire me to go and kick the shit out of some guy that messed around because I was under 18 and I wouldn't get charged, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, should we be talking about this? But it's like, no, you were under 18. We'll get it.
Yeah.
He was a minor, y'all. We'll get it.
No,
That's the only situation in which you can say he was a minor. It's all good.
Yo, relax, man.
Yeah, it's just...
The hopes.
Well, we're talking about some heavy shit. We gotta throw in some humor every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but it's like, I hear you though, like, cause growing up in Africa, in Nigeria, man, racism wasn't a thing. When 99% of people you interact with look like you, like, even like sometimes you make fun of someone like, ha, you're blacky, you know what I mean, or ha, you're light skinned, but it wasn't a race thing. It was more like, dude, why are you so dark, and dude, why are you so light? You know what I mean? Like it right? But it's like coming to Canada, you know what I mean? It's weird, you know what I mean? Having someone call you the N-word for the first time and like just see so much like anger in your face, you know what I mean? Like such like maleficent, like malicious, like intent. You know what I mean? It's like, you nigga. I was like, whoa. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know what that means, but I heard. You know what I mean? Like,
was it just some bum on the street?
No. Like the first time let me break it down to y'all. The first time I was called the N-word, right? I was in grade 8 class. I had this white kid, blonde hair, blue eye. He walks up to me. He's like, yo, Olu, could I borrow a pencil? Mine broke. I was like, sure, cool. I give him a pencil. You know what I mean? Class goes by, I don't get my pencil back. So I'm like, yo, kid, could I have my pencil? You know what I mean? Dude, that just looks me straight in the eye, bro. Like, just snaps it in half and goes, what you gonna do about it, nigga? I was like, what? I was so lost. I was like, what? Okay. What just happened? Like, I was so lost.
That's a stupid.
I was like, what the fuck?
That's a stupid kid.
To this day, I don't understand. Like, what just happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Has it happened to you as an adult?
Look,
As
bro.
a young adult?
As a young adult in high school, so this happened when I was in grade 8. In high school, in grade 10, like, debtors, bro, like, I'd be walking to 7-Eleven, like, you have kids, you know what I mean? And, like, there's some kids that go to school with me, you know what I mean? But, like, I don't know, they might be in a different grade or whatever. You have
Right.
kids just driving by and something, yo, nigga, I was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Just driving past, it's so weird, you know what I mean? Or, like, going to the store, you know what I mean? I remember being, like, in grade 7, you know what I mean? I was, like, 4'5", you know what I mean? Had no facial hair, you know what I mean? Low cut, you know, I just looked like a regular kid, you know what I mean? And, like, from the minute I walk in the door, all the employees are staring at me, you know what I mean? Like, your eyes are just following me all throughout the store. I'm like, what the fuck is going on, bro? Like, you know what I mean? And I remember so vividly, you know what I mean? The first time I went to 7-Eleven by myself, you know what I mean? That shit happens to me. And they're all staring at me. And while they're staring at me, I look beside me, like, down the aisle, there's a bunch of, like, white and, like, indigenous kids just, like, stuffing their bags, bro. Like, because, like, taking advantage of the fact that everyone's staring at me, you know what I mean? Right? I'm like, damn, that's crazy. I mean, you know, so actually what happened is, at the end of that day, you know, when I went back to school, I seen those same kids. I was like, yo, why don't we do this every single time? Except next time we're gonna sell this. We're gonna sell the stuff we get, and we're gonna have a little cash, and we're gonna split it between ourselves.
You notice it was the indigenous kids stealing the stuff?
And some white kids. You know what I mean? Some white kids. So it's like, this is the thing. Like, what?
I used to steal from 7-Elevens all the time.
Like, what? In my experience, what I've realized in countries like Canada is that, you know, as much as race plays a factor, economic class plays a factor. You know what I mean? Right? I've learned that there's a big difference between, like, white kids who grew up in rich neighborhoods and, like, white kids who grew up in trailer parks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Big difference. You know what I'm saying? Big difference.
And your guys' perspective on that is always going to be different than mine. It's
Right.
always going to be different than the average white person because I didn't have to face that. And I didn't have to deal with that, right? So it's an... I don't want... some of it is ignorance, but some of it is just a result of the society we live in, right?
It's white privilege,
It just is what it is,
It's
right?
white privilege.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, the thing with that,
It's all good. We all get pretty privileged, though, so it's fine.
Oh, yeah. well, this is the thing, right? What you just said was it actually stands out into how I had to deal with life in Winnipeg when I was here because I was 10 years old when we moved to Winnipeg.
Okay.
And,
I was 11.
You know, and then hanging around with all of these kids, I kept getting beaten up by the white kids all the time, and the native kids that I'd run into, they would beat me up because you
didn't talk native.
Well, it wasn't that I didn't talk native. We're talking about inner city native kids. It was because they didn't have the nice clothes, or they didn't live in we lived in a nice house in a nice neighborhood where they lived in townhouses and apartment buildings, right? And we had a nice car. They didn't have a car.
Right.
Their parents looked like
welfare.
Looked like welfare. Yeah. And that's the same thing with the white community. The white kids that I did get along with, they all look like bikers. They all look like rockers, fighters, you know?
Yeah.
Like they were the tough guys you didn't mess with.
Right.
Right? And then, but some of them, they didn't like people who had money. So it wasn't just the fact that a native guy's got more money than them.
Right.
They just didn't like anybody that had more money than them, right?
Yeah.
But then, of course, now the native thing is in there, and now it's like calling me an apple or a bush monkey or, you know, like saying all that shit. A lot of these people are ignorant because they don't even know the words they're using.
Right.
It's like the N-word.
Right.
Even a lot of black people don't realize the N-word is about a lazy black person that doesn't do their job.
Right.
Yes.
That's what it means, but they turn into a derogatory terminology to reflect on other
All
black people, right? And that's so stupid, and you don't realize that that's what the word is. But because it's so derogatory now, you don't say it. And the unfortunate thing is, bush monkey, N-word, whatever, you know, there's so many like spick and spook and whatever.
Yeah.
All these words, they're still used by the non-indigenous people, the Caucasians, let's say.
Booty scratches.
Yeah, they're still used by these people.
Yeah, we love our forbidden words. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, that one f***ed me up even more than the N-word. The first time someone called me a booty star, I was like, what? How do you come up with this? You know what I mean? Like what?
Well, You know, the people didn't even know why. A lot of people that I talk to, they don't know what apple is, right?
Right. Red
so
on
when
the
I'm
outside,
getting
white on the inside.
red on the outside, white on the inside, right?
I completely get that.
Yeah,
Because like for me, I don't speak my language. Like even though I grew up in Nigeria, I grew up in the capital city of Nigeria. You know what I mean? Right. So like a lot of times, like I was telling Austin yesterday, I'd go back to the village with my dad. Bro, I get roasted every single day, bro. Like I'll just, man, I'm hungry. I'm trying to go get some food. I'm like, could I have some food? You're like, say that in Yoruba, you know, which is my language. I'm like, I don't know how to say that. You're like, oh, you're not eating today. I'm like, what the fuck, bro? Like,
well, I'm gonna learn Yoruba faster than you, man. I can tell you that right now, man.
You know
I'm
what I
learning
mean?
my Swahili and my Yoruba too.
Yeah,
so, right?
you know what I mean? So yeah, that's just shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, or like kids in church, you know what I mean, or in school would make fun of you. You know what I mean? Like, haha, you don't speak your language.
My father.
And then like I don't have an English name either, right? I only have like Nigerian names, right? And then you come to like Winnipeg, like, and people make fun of you for not having like English name. It's like,
Oh,
bro,
but you got the coolest Nigerian name.
I can't win, bro. I can't win. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like people don't like me. White people don't like me.
Yeah, that's what I deal with too. But my dad was educated, right? My dad's very smart. He used to teach me and my brother. He'd give us 10 words a week, and we had to learn how to pronounce those words and use them in a sentence. And that's part of how my brother and I learned how to rhyme, right? Because we could use all of our dictionary and thesauruses and create these rhymes from all these really wicked words.
Yes.
Right? But my father, he used to tell us every time we come home and we'd be crying, you know, somebody beat us up or somebody was picking on me or whatever. My dad would always say, you know, like I said to him one time, I said that this kid, he told me to f off. And he says, well, you can be smarter than them. Yeah. You know, say fornicate elsewhere. You know, and then just throw them right off. Like, what the hell did this kid just say, you know? And,
you want to have coitus with me?
yeah. You almost sound like, what's his name? Sheldon Big Bang, right?
Sheldon Cooper.
You know, using this terminology that throws people off, right? But it just it shows a mental superiority over them, right?
Yes. It's disarming them.
It disarms them, right? It throws them right off. And it's like when I used to get called Apple, my father said, well, then ask them, what do you think I'm a gala or a granny? Because if I'm a granny, I'm green, right? You're rich.
But shout out your dad. Man, I relate to that a lot. Like for birthdays, my dad would literally get us like dictionaries and Bibles. Like I didn't get no toys, I didn't get no video games. I got a dictionary and a Bible every birthday. There you go.
I never had to deal with the Bible.
You're just like, yay.
So excited. The 8th edition of Oxford Dictionary. Woohoo! You know what I mean? Like,
oh my goodness.
You know what I mean? Like,
I gotta say, my parents spoiled us with toys and stuff, but my father, again, because of his education, and my mother, because of her style and her class, she taught me jewelry and how to dress. And my father taught me how to dress, but he also taught me using my mind and my words and my power. You know, he says, you don't need to hit somebody to scare them. You know, that's why you're trained to be a martial artist and a boxer and, you know, and Muay Thai or whatever. The idea is, you know, you can hurt them. So just staring and learning how to have a stoic face, you know, smile when you're mad. Don't grimace.
Oh, people get terrified when you smile when you're
exactly.
Mad. They get
and I train myself.
in the boots, bro.
I've trained myself to be like that, and even now when I'm walking, most people would look at a car accident. I could hear it, and I don't care because I'm focused on where I'm going.
Right.
Of course, there's the opportunity for something to hit me. But I don't stare at people because I hate people who stare at me.
Fair.
Right? Fair. So when I go somewhere, I don't smile and I don't look around and stare at people. I just focus on what I want to focus on. If I see something beautiful, I look at that and I contemplate
things. If you see someone beautiful.
If I see someone beautiful, they're usually on my arm already, so I don't really have to.
Yes, sir!
And being a chief, I can have more than one. Right?
That's the right answer.
I used to, as a rapper, you have braggadocio, and I used to tell people, I'm a magnet and women are cheap metal.
I'm a magnet.
When I'm on stage, I'm a magnet. Women are cheap metal.
We do not condone that.
If you're just listening in now, just skip back half an hour where he talks about how much he respects women.
Yeah. But I do. But I mean, I'll tell you, man. Like,
he literally said, "Mothers are God." You know what I mean? Like, Like, what else could you ask for, man? You know?
You know, they always say that ugly bikers get the best looking chicks. And I always say I'm an ugly biker.
Damn.
Because I always have a beautiful lady on the back of my bike,
Nah,
right?
Nah, I ain't a pretty...
But I don't mind being on the back of a pretty girl's bike. You know what I mean?
Oh, shit.
I don't mind holding her. She could be 5 feet tall riding the big Harley, and I'll be sitting up here holding her. You know, I don't mind being the bitch on the bike.
Hey, that's still badass.
Hey, look,
You're on a bike with a
I ain't
chick.
ugly. My mama said I'm pretty. That's all.
You're not my mom. You can't tell me.
My mama said I'm handsome. Oh, okay. How long has it been so far?
We have about 10 minutes. We're about 50 minutes in.
50 minutes in.
So
Man, we ended up just going on a tangent there.
Yeah, then I think that's cool. You know, because then you get to see different aspects, and you can break it down into different subjects, right?
Yeah.
Because I like talking, and you can keep this because I like talking about cultural, race, and all those kind of interactions. Because
Absolutely.
all my music, I mean, think about it. I was rapping in the '70s when even the blacks weren't rapping in Canada. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I grew up with Sheila Robinson, right?
Yeah.
I met her.
Sugar Hill Gang, right?
Yeah, Sugar Hill Gang. I met her family in New York when my parents decided to go on a trip in the States, and I was maybe 6 years old, and I met her son Leland,
Okay.
and a couple of the other kids, right?
Okay.
And I think Leland had an older brother and a younger brother. But I don't remember Leland's name up until recently.
Okay.
It's just that back then I met this kid that was really cool, and he was, you know, he was teaching me about hip hop and rap.
Yeah, hippity hop hop.
And I didn't even know I was a rapper because I was rhyming all my shit since I was 2-3 years old, right?
Okay.
And when I met this black family in the States at this campsite, you know, there was a man there, and he came up to my father and he says, "Come on over, have a beer. We'll rap a bit."
Yeah.
Right? And he used the word rap, and I was wondering, what the heck's that? So I asked the kid, and so the kid started rhyming, and so we were talking, we became good buddies. You know, he started sending me cassette tapes of beats and people rhyming, him rhyming on the microphone and stuff like that. And that's how I got introduced to rap. But I was living on an island in the north, in Manitoba, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have record players, we didn't have radio, we didn't have TV.
Yeah.
So I had a tape player from my dad's office, and that's how I took 2 tape players and I created the beat on transferring back and forth and then rhyming.
Yeah.
And that's how I created it, right?
Yeah.
So in the 70s, I was rapping, but I didn't know I was rapping until I met that guy.
Yeah.
And then I realized later on, while we were in New York, we went to this festival. They invited us to this community festival, and we went there. That's when I realized that this lady knows about music, but I still didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
Not until later on do I realize this is Sheila Robinson, the creator of rap, the Sugar Hill Gang, right?
Yeah, one of the founding, I guess not fathers, but one of the founding people of rap for sure.
Yeah. So and you know, and then eventually I ended up working with Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5.
That's so sick, man.
Africa Bambaataa,
Boom.
you know,
Yeah.
Kool
The OG,
Moe Dee, you know, I was working with all these rappers from all over. Then I ended up meeting Chubb Rock at a club, and Queen Latifah, and you know, Eazy-E before he died. You
Rest
know,
in peace.
like I performed with some of these heavyweights that I didn't even know were heavyweights. You know what I mean? Kool Moe Dee and I started wearing Porsche sunglasses. We got sponsorship. We were the only 2 rappers that get sponsorship from Porsche. You know? So we got a Spree, Downhill Boss, Movado, Carrera. I had Coca-Cola. I had all these sponsors. And then, and then all of a sudden, when I started getting recognized as a rapper in Winnipeg, now I'm battling all of these black rappers, but I'm not getting any respect because natives don't rap. You know what I mean? But DJ Bunny, he's such a good man, and he doesn't look at color. He's colorblind, right? But he recognizes.
Yes.
Right? So he invited me onto a TV show. After the TV show, then I got respected. But now everybody got to see. Farm Fresh saw me, and Mood Rough, and all these other groups that You know, they're all recognized as rappers, but I'm still not recognized as a rapper. Yet I'm the godfather of indigenous hip hop and rap.
Gotta change that, man.
And my brother too, right?
Yeah.
My brother was a hip hop dancer. He was a better rapper than I am. And he co-wrote lyrics that got us to the Junos and the Grammys, right? And we got nominated for all these indigenous awards, but because we were the only rappers in hip hop, our categories got canceled for all these different indigenous award shows. So they didn't even give us like here's a plaque to say, you know, you got nominated, or here's your recognition for what you've done.
Right.
We never got any of that. Then all of a sudden, in the 2000s, now they have the indigenous shows, right?
Yeah, everything.
And now all of these rappers that I influenced or I helped out in the beginning, they're all getting the awards. They're all getting the recognition, and you know, they don't even consider what I've done, or that's why I've stayed away and I've stayed silent, because I don't want you guys knowing anything that I'm going to be putting out.
It's another example of selfishness in the industry. We find it in every industry, but there's a unique selfishness in the music industry.
Industry villainous, bro. Industry villainous. But I mean, that's cool, bro. That's a lot of people don't know this, but like Wap Kanu used to be a rapper himself too. You know what I mean? So indigenous rap has been around for a while. You know what I mean? But before we wrap up, like, where can people find your music? And if they can't, you know, do you have any stuff coming out soon?
Yeah, I've got, we've got a project, right? But,
Shh, give me the secret.
But,
It's gonna be big.
but I mean, I'm doing something with you guys, but I'm also doing something with 2 other rap groups.
Sick.
Right? And then I've got my personas for gospel and crooner. And then I got my own rap project. A couple of documentaries and a couple of music videos. So
Sick.
all within the next year. Plus, I just got asked to be part of a choir here in Winnipeg. So in June, I'm going to be auditioning for the choir.
Sick.
Although I don't know if I have to audition, right? But I'm going to, right? I don't want to be the lead of anything. I don't mind being in the background. It's the same thing with my acting career. I just started. I put my name into different groups for acting, and I don't know if they're my agents or not yet. But whatever. I'm trying to get into more acting. I used to do acting years ago, but I'm trying to do that right now. So I'm trying to get parts for, I don't care what it is. I don't care about being the star. I don't mind if I have to play a bum on the street, or the guy that's handing you a coffee. I don't give a crap how small the role is or how big it is, just as long as I get to do it and have fun, right?
Yeah.
So those are some of the projects, but yeah, I've got probably 6 albums that are coming out by January 2026.
That's dope. Are they gonna be out on all platforms?
Yeah, all digital, online. I'm even making. I got a company that's gonna do 12-inch discs for my DJs, because I got 3 DJs, so each one has to have a copy of.
If you make a vinyl record, I would love one.
Yes, I can do that. I'll trade you for some eggs.
Say no more. I'm shaking it.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And you can. Let me have your girlfriend for at least 5 minutes. I only need 2, but
We can work that out.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode.
If you enjoyed this episode, show some love to our many platforms.
All the links attached below. We appreciate you all.
Peace and vibes.